Hello friends, how are you? Welcome to Japan Study Center. Today we are going to see the chapter of geography, and what is our topic today? Ocean, submarine relief and water circulation. There is a most important chapter, and here's come to the most important topic arrive here. Ocean basin. Ocean basin is the most important here. Our Earth is the only planet is the solar system which has a water is abundance, and as it is often to call a water planet. About 71% of the Earth's surface is covered by the water. There is the most important here. Note down: 71% of Earth's surface is covered by the water. Ocean from a single is a large continually body of water is in circulating all there is a landmarks of the Earth. They account for the fourth, fifth, and southern hemisphere and the three-fifth of the northern hemisphere. They contain of 97.2% of the world total water. There is a most important also. There are four principal oceans in the world which are thus separated to largely on the basis of their is a geographically location. And these are the Pacific Ocean, there is the Indian Ocean and Atlantic Ocean and Arctic Oceans. All the other sea is inland sea are the arms of the oceans are counted within this is the four main ocean. There is the most important and important also here diagram. This diagram shows the oceans and the percentage share of the planet and total ocean area. There is the most important here. The oceans show here first diagram, and second here percentage. There is a percentage here. Antarctica Ocean is a 42.2% cover to area, and Atlantic Ocean is a 24.4 is a part of the occupy, and the Indian Ocean is a 22%, and the Pacific Ocean is a larger point is a 49.4%. There is a most important here of 49.4%. There is a most important for the UPC examination. Our most important topic here arrive the relief of the ocean basin. Here a part of the ocean submarine relief and water circulation lesson. There is a most important the relief of the ocean's basins. The ocean's water is a conceals as a considerable variety of landscape. The very similar to it is a counterpart of the continent, and there is a mountain basin, plateaus, ranges, and cyclones, and the trenches is the benefit of the ocean's water too. And this relief feature is found on the ocean's floor are called submarine relief. The ocean basins are broadly is divided into four major subdivisions. There is a most important. There is the ocean basin is divided by four major subdivisions. The first here continental shelf, and second here continental slope, and third here abyssal plain, and fourth here the ocean deepest. There is a most important and also important. There is so here a picture like. In this picture, there is the most important continentals is the sand and the continental slopes and the abyssal plain and the oceans deep. There is a show the first year land, continental shelf, oceans ridges and the coastal lines, enables plain and the submarine trenches. There is a most important diagram here show there the all types and four here show in this picture. The first here is the continental shelf. The continental shelf here there is a no clear or well defined it the separating ocean from the continentals, and the in fact is a continental do not and erupted at the shoreline, and this slope is a seawarded from to the coastal to a point where the slope become very steep. The shelves is a submarine is extension of the continental is called continental shelf. There is a depth of this shallow is sea water over to continental shelf range between 120 to 370 meter. The volume of their continental shelf is a very greatly ranging between a few kilometers to more than 100 kilometers, and this variation can be seen even in their continental of the Indian Peninsula. The continental shelf of the eastern coastal of India is a much wilder than that of their western coastal. Similarly, variation are seen all over the world. Of the coastal of Western Europe, it is extend to the 320 km from to the cap of the land as a end. Of the coastal of Florida and their itself is a 240 km wide. They are much narrow and absent in the some continentals, particularly where the fault mountain run a parallel or close to the coastal and along their eastern is the Pacific Ocean. The most of the continentals is a swamp or represent the land which has been to the inundated by the rise in the sea level. Many regarded there is a formation due to the erosions and work of wave of due to the extension of land by the deposition of river and bond materials on the offshore traces and of their coastal region which is there is a once is a covered by the ice sheet and they may be have developed due to the glaciers deposit. The continental slabs are the greater important to the man. The swell water over to self-imbalance is the sunlight to the penetrate through the water to the bottom and encourage growth of the macroscopy plants and animals called plankton. That is called to the plankton. There are macro plant and animals called to the plankton and this is a plankton are food for the fishes. And continental is as well as their source of fish, mineral including sand and gravel. A large quantity of the world is a petroleum and natural gas is obtained from this sap. That is the most important for the quantity is a large amount of the petroleum and natural gas obtained of this type of the here. The Mumbai is a high and the recent is a discovery of petroleum in the Godavari Basin is example of the share of drillings on the continental shelf and corals reefs and the lipoplastic clastics and materials are also is common on the continental shelf. One of the striking features of the continental shelf is the presence of the submarine ions which is extended to the continental slope and this cyclone is here as a step beside of valley cut into the floor of the sea. They are very similar to the gargoyles found on the continental Godavari. Second is a front of the Godavari river mouth as a mouth is a 502-meter deep. Here show the most important diagram is a submarine ion. There is the most important. Here show the continental shelf, continental slope and the sea surface. And here a continental. There is a most important diagram here. One of the reason for the formation of the submarine is one is underwater is a landslide. The sediment is collected on the continental slab. There's get a dislodged by the storm of the earthquake. The force of this is moving a sediment is eroded their slope as they come down and as the result of submarines ions are covered out. The continental shelf is generally considered to be a territorial water extent of the nation to which is a adjoined. There is a most important here. An important point around this box is a continental shelf is the submarine is a portion of their continental which is a gradually slope seaward from the shoreline. And secondly is a submarine ion is a deep valley cut into the continental shelf. There is extend to the continental slope. There is a most important here. The next here is a continental slope. There is a most important here, the continental slope. The continually sloping is the borders of the continental marines and seawards of there is a continental shelf and extending down to be deep sea floor of the is the upswell plan. There is a known as the continental slope. It is characterized by their gradient of 2.5 degrees. This extent is between to the depth of the 180 to the 3600 meter. In some place, for example, of the shore of the Philippines, there is a continental slope extend to a great depth. The continental is a slope is a mainly due to there is a steepness and increasing a distance from to land has very is a little deposit of sediment on them, and sea life is there also for less here than on the shelf. That is the most important. Here show the diagram the continental shelf and slope here. That is the most important diagram. Here show the continental rise and the submarine scion and the continental shelf and the is a continental slope. The slope here is the slope here is the most important, and the continental is a shelf here present. There is the most important diagram for the exam view. Along the base of the continental slope is the deposit of sediments, and this belt of the sedimentaries deposit from to continental rise in a some region. The rise is very narrow, but is the other it may be extend up to 6 kilometers in a where. There is the most important, and there is a most important here point. A continental slope is the stably there is sloping part of the sea floor which mark the boundary between the sea floor and continental shelf. That is the most important, and the belt of sediment is a deposit along the basis of the continental slope is called continental rises. There is the most important also. The third part here, the axial plan, there is the most important. Axial plan are extremely flat and featureless plan of the deep ocean's floor. In fact, the axial plan are likely to be most a level area the earth. Axial plan is a cover a major portion of ocean floor between depth of the 3000 meter to 6000 meter. That is the most important, and there is a once regarded as a featureless. There is a featureless plan is also important, but modern device has a show that there are a regular as the continental plan are surface. They have extensive submarine plateaus as a hill is a guy out of the sea mouths. The floor of the upswell plain is covered by sediments, and the plains close to their continental are covered mostly by the sediments is the brought down from the land. But those sea which is a favor and abundant growth of organisms have a thick layer of sediments formed from the remain of living things, and these elements are called ozone. Ozone has a some of the open sea do not support the enough life to produce ozes on the floor. They are covered with types of sediments called red clay, which of the volcanic origin are made up to teeny particles both by the wind and rivers. The wind and there is a river. The next here are submarine radius. There is the most important. There is softly mountain system which exists on the continents is also is represented beneath their oceans waters, and these oceans mountain are known as the submarine radius, and they are the liners belt occurring near to the middle of the oceans and are also is called to the mid-ocean ridges. All the mid-ocean ridges is a constitute a worldwide system which is interconnected from the ocean to ocean, and these ridges are intersected by their fault. The oceanic is the rise is the site of the frequent earthquake. The volcanism is a common in ocean rises, and it is a produce many relief feature. That is the most important also. The mid is the alternating radius is the largest continually submarine is a mountain radius which run from north to south in the Atlantic Ocean. It is in the shape of the S. At the some place the peak rise above the surface of water in the form of islands. The many of islands are volcanic in the origin. The east is epiphysics is rises as a curvaceous as rises are some of the important submarine radius. Here show the most important the map here are charges and radius here. This map is the most important for the bold radius here. There is a most important. The next here is a sea mounts and guyouts. seamount and guyot here is a scattering over to the entire seafloor, and thousands of the submarines is a balconies with the sharp tops is called seamounts. Sometimes they rise above the sea as the isolated island. The Hawaii's and Tahiti's is island are exposed tops of the balconies. Balconies are rising above their oceans floor. Both top has been to flattened by erosion and is a covered by the water. It is called guyot. Here show the most important picture here, a seamount and guyot here. There is the most important, a guyot here, first diagram, seamount is the second, and volcanic island is the third. There is the most important here diagram. The next here, the ocean's deeps. There is the most important, the ocean's deeps. The ocean deeps are the deepest part of the ocean. They are long, narrow, and steep-sided as a flat, flooded depressions on the ocean's floor. They are generally called submarine trenches, and these trenches are not away localized in the middles of the ocean's basins, as may be generally expected, but are situated very close to the parallel to the continental bordered by fault mountains. They are usually found to adjacent to their area of the volcanics and earthquake activities. Great earthquakes and the tsunamis are born in them. They occur in all the major oceans. The Pacific is ocean has the largest number of trenches, and there are Mariana trenches in the Pacific Oceans in the deep set now part of the oceans. And the trenches is so deep that if we place the highest mountain of the world, the Mount Everest is the event shell has been to few kilometers of water above the summit. There is the most important, and here the important point arrive. Upstairs is the plans are underlatings plan of the enormous extent which have many irregularities such as the submarine, plateaus, hill, and guyot and the sea mounts. The long narrow steps is the sided and the flat folded or depression in the oceans are known as ocean deeps. The point of here arrive a property of the ocean water. There is the most important here properties of the ocean water. The temperature and salinity are too important except of their ocean water which affect their movements. And therefore the temperature, salinity and density of the ocean's water have a special significance in the study of circulation of the ocean's water. There is also important. The next point here are temperature of ocean waters. There is the most important point. The temperature of the surface water of the ocean varies in a much the same way that of the land surface, and this is because the insulations is responsible for their varying quantities of the heat which are received at different latitudes and at different seasons. Generally, the temperature are highly near the equator and gradually decrease to about to the poles. And the means annual temperature of the about 27 Celsius or higher are common is a tropical seas, but there is a generally is a decreasing to about to the poles where the mean temperature of around 1.8 Celsius are found here. However, there are decrease of temperature of surface water to about their pole of increase to about the equator is not uniformal because there is a drafting warms water from the tropical seas and maybe move into the higher latitudes or vice versa, and there give a local increase or decrease of temperature. Wellings of deep cold water also reduce is a locally there is surface temperature of tropically and subtropical sea waters. There is a most important. The high temperature of water are found in the enclosed seas in the tropical example the Red Sea. The Antarctic's water are so cold that there is a surface or remain permanently frozen down to a depth of several meters. In the summer, as a month, a part of the ice break off to the iceberg which dilute their waters and lower the surface temperature of surrounding ice-free seas. There is also variation in the vertically distribution of a temperature. The temperature decreases with increasing of depth. This is because the surface of sea water receive the large amount of insolations. Insolation as their rays penetrate the water, there is intensity is reduced by the scatterings, reflection and diffusion. However, the rate of decrease in the temperature is not equal at all depth upon to depth of about 100 meters. The temperature of water is about the same as that of the surface. Well, it is a fall from 215 Celsius to about 2 Celsius between to the surface and depth of the 1800 meters. And the decrease between to 1800 and the 4000 meters is a form of 2 Celsius to about 1.2 Celsius. There is a most important here. Here the main process of heating the ocean's water are by the absorption of the heat from the sun. And secondly by the convention of the heat through their ocean's bottom from interior of their earth. And the cooling process are here by loss of heat to the atmospheres and by the evaporation there is a cooling process. There is a most important. The next here is the salinity of the ocean's water. There is also important topic here. One of the most striking character of the ocean's water is its salinity or is a saltiness. And when to the speak of salinity, we have in the mind not only to the common salt or sodium chloride, but a great variety of other salt are well. There is a dominance of salt among these are the sodium chloride and the magnesium chloride with a 77.7% to 10.9% respectively. Due to the free movement of ocean's water, their position of different salt remain remarkably is a constant in all oceans and even to great depth. But the degrees of the concentration of the salt solution in the oceans does vary to appreciable in a different sea. There is a most important also. The salinity of the ocean water produced by a large number of dissolved chemical compounds. A salinity is defined as the weight is a grams of a solid material left after the evaporation of 100 grams of seawater. The weight of solid material is 35 grams and it is usually very near the figure. The salinity would be also so when 35 Celsius as a 35 per thousand. Salinity is expressed in this way that rather than to the percentage. In the Baltic seas, fresh water enters in form of surrounding land and reduce the salinity to the 7 degrees and its fall in this sea is a low of 2 Celsius. But a greater is evaporation combined with the very as a dry is a climate in the Red Sea region give to the water of the sea is a highly salinity of the 41 to the 42. In enclosed sea, which is the area of the land is dense such as the Caspian Sea, the salinity is very high, the 8, and there are Dead Sea of the Jordan. The salinity may be a highly 25 Celsius, and variation of the salinity is a different sea and ocean is affected by the first here the rate of evaporations, the second the amount of fresh water and added by the steam and icebergs, and third here a mixing of the ocean's water. There is a most important here moment of ocean's water. There is a most important topic here. The water of the oceans are never still. Their ocean actually exhibit of the three major types of movement. There is a wave, tides and currents. There is a most important here. There are first point arrive here. Waves. The waves are oscillatory movement that is a result in the rise and fall of water surface. In fact, the moment of each water particle in a wave is a circular. The moment of the wave is just like the wind's glowing across a wheat field and the causing a wave like a ripple to the roll across to its surface. The beanstalk is returned to the original position after the passes of each wave of the wind, and similarly water also returned to its original position after the transmitted a wave. There is the most important. A wave has two major parts. The raised part is called the crest between to the two crest or low area called thaw, and there are vertically distance between the top and the crest is called wave height. The horizontal distance between two crests or two thaw there is called wave length. The time it will take for the two crests to the pass a given point is called wave period, and fast moving is a wave has a short period, while slow or moving wave have a long period. Here is the most important diagram. There are part of the wave. There is the most important. There is height, trough and crest till water level and wavelength. The wavelength is shown on the two side. First the trough and there is the other side. There are part of wave. The size and force of the sea wave depend on the three factors. The velocity of the wind, there is the most important. The length of time winds blow and distance that the wind has to travel across the open sea. And this is called to the fetch. The waves are an important agent of erosions when the waves are associated with the storm on the volcanic eruptions. They are very violent and cause of damage on the coastal area. They are also a source of energy and effort to the begin made to the hardness and their energy. The next year are tides. The tides along is a coastal all over the world. We observe the sea water is moving both upward and downward at a rates varying from place to place. Such a variation in the sea level occur from here to here and from a day to day. At the time of a rising sea level, the incoming tide toward to the land is spoken of as a flow tide or the flood tides. At the time of falling sea level after a few hours, we speak of the tides water going out of withdrawals is ebb tides. Low tides, above tide is the low tides and there are flood tides are high tides and the ebb tide is the low tides. The tides are really there is the largest wave keeping their oceans water restless. Twice a day or regularly at the constant intervals the tides flow in and twice a day it is a ebbs way. Twice as a month flow tides are higher and the ebb tides are lower than the average. Also twice a month flow tides are lower and the average tides are higher than the average. However, there is regular interval between two high tides or between two low tides is a 12 hours and 25 minutes and not exactly is a 12 hours. Each day in a 24 hours, their high tides arrives about 51 minutes later than on the previous day. It is so because each day is a rising and setting of the moons also fall behind by the 51 minutes. It will take a 24 hours or 50 minutes for the rotating to the earth varying to the same meridians and vertically below to the moons every day. There is the most important, the timing of their tides at the place on the coastal will be clear to you. Your form of the following example. The high tides here 6 a.m. and the low tide is the 12:13 p.m. and the high tide is the 6:25 p.m. And the low tide here are coming to the 12:38 am and high tides come to the 6:51 am next day. There is the most important, the tides arrive and low tides and high tide. The factor responsible for the warnings about the such a variation in the regulation and the size of tides are the location of the sun, the moon and the earth is related to the each other which is related in the straight line. The distance of the sun and the moon from the earth are not a constant and the next year our globes is not entire covered with the water. The outline and shape of the coastal may be helped or hidden in the tides. There is the most important. The still there are tides follow each other with the great is a punctuations at the one given coastal. And what are the force that generate the tides? The earth attract and is also attracted by the sun, the moon and by other is a planet's body. It's called their gravitational force and it is operate between the suns, moons and the earth. It is said their ocean's water is a motion producing a tides current. And tides are a proof of such a gravitational pull. The moons and the sun both extend there is a gravitational force on the earth. The ocean, submarine relief and the circulation sun which is a bigger in a mass than to the moon is also at the greater distance from the earth than the moon. Therefore, the gravitational attraction of the moon is a more effective on the earth and the gravitational attraction of the sun. Since there is a water is a liquid and the mobiles it is a bearings in the direction facing the moon easily noticed. Yet the lower tides was also develops on the other side of the earth and the further from the moon because the moon is the least attraction. Here show the diagram of formation of tide. There is a CF is a centrifugal force and GF is a gravitational force. There is the tides based earth. There is a moon. There is the most important diagram here. The next here are spring and nipple tides. The moon as it is closer to the earth except to the twice of gravitational pull of the sun on the earth. When the sun and the moon are is aligned as on the new moons is a Amasya or the full moons is a Purnima. There is a most important here Amasya and Purnima and both them pull together at the same time in the same direction. And this combined pull up produce a extra large tide. It is called a spring tide. There is a large tide and the extra tide is called to spring tides. In the first quarter is Astami, Shukla and Paksh and the third quarter is a Asmi Krishna Paksh. There is a gravitational force of the two heavens body is at the right angle. At this time, the two pull of the opposing each other and are not attacking in their same direction. In other words, they are the cancel are neutralized to each other as a fact. It's a produce a weak tide which is called nipple tides. Show in this figure. Here show the one here are spring tides. There is spring tide is a attraction to each other and other is a tides. A second there is a sun and the moon and the earth here. There is a most important diagram show in this picture. The next here effect of tides. The phenomenon of tide which is so universal has been to the immense is a value to man for a age. Tide acts a link between the port and the open sea. Some of the major ports of the world, such as London port of the river Thames and the Kolkata port are rivers or Hooghly are located on the river away from to sea coastal. The tides currently clear away to the river sediment and the slow down to the growth of the delta. It is increasing the depth of water which help a ship to move safely to the ports. It also acts as the source of producing electricity. The tides make the rivers exhausted for the oceans, going seas, clear sediments, and ready to the formation of the delta and are the source of producing electricity. The next here is the currents. The currents is the most important. The ocean currents are horizontal flow of the mass of water in a fairly defined direction over to great distance. They are like a stream of the water flowing through their main body of the ocean is a regular pattern. The average speed of current here between 3.2 km to the 10 km per hour. Ocean currents with a higher speed are called stem and current with a lower speed are called draft. There is the most important. Their higher speed is called to the stem current and the lower speed is called to the draft. There is the most important. Ocean currents can be broadly is divided into here the first here those currents which is a flow from the equatorial regions toward to the pole have a high surface temperature and are called warm current. And next here those currents which is a flow from polar region toward to the equator have a lower surface temperature and are called cold currents. There is the most important. The origin and the nature of the circulation of the ocean currents depend on the following factor. The factor here is important. The first factor here, difference in a density. The sea water as a density varies from to place according to its temperature and proportion of salinity. The higher their temperature of water, the lesser will be a density. Hence, there are less dense water of the equator move toward a pole, while there are cold and dense water of the poles move toward their equator. Thus, the cold currents away move from to the poles to equator, while there are warm current moving from equator toward the poles. The currents are also produced by the change in the salinity of the ocean water. If the salinity of the water is more, the density of the water increase and the water sink. Hence, the water with the lower salinities flow on the surface of the high salinities. Water will on the undercurrent of the high salinities and flow toward to the less dense water. The current is the causing by difference in the salinity are found between the Atlantic Ocean, the lower salinity, and the Mediterranean Sea of the higher salinity. There is the most important. The important point here, the height, the temperature of water, lower is the density. And the height, the salinity of water, higher is it is a density. The next year, the earth as a rotation. We have studied in an earlier lesson that the earth as a rotation defect here to its right in the northern hemisphere and to its left in the southern hemisphere. Similarly, ocean water is also affected by the Coriolis force and flow there very low. So all the ocean current flow to the clockwise direction in the northern hemisphere and anti-clockwise direction in the southern hemisphere. There is a earth as rotation. The next year, the planetary wind. There is the most important here, the planetary wind like the trade as a wind is the western rise, drive to the ocean's water in the easterly flow in the front of them. If we are compared to the world map of planetary winds or system with that of the oceans, current is will be clear that a current flow the main direction of the planetary wind system. In a low latitudes are the region of the trade wind oceans currently change. There is a direction according to the change in the direction of the summer and winter monsoon wind. Have the currents of the Atlantic Ocean. There is a part of here ocean submarine relief and the water circulation. There is the most important currents of the Atlantic. There is the ocean. The north and south equator. There are two western moving currents, the northern and south equatorial current. Between this is equilateral current is a counter-equilateral current which is a flow from west to east. Right in the figure and the counter current replace the water removal from to the eastern side of ocean by the north and south equilateral current. There is the most important. The south equilateral current is by forkate into the branches near to the Cap D, Shore, Royal and the Brazil. It is a northern branch is joined to the northern equilateral current and this combined current enter to the Caribbean Sea and the Gulf of the Mexico. Where the remaining current is passes along the eastern side of the West India of the Antilles and current. There is the most important here. The part of the current which is the enter the Gulf of Mexico and the come out from the Florida Strait and the join to the Antilles current. This combined current is a move along the southeastern coastal of USA. It is known as the Florida current is up to Cape of Hatteras and beyond to the Caps Hatteras is up to the Grand Banks of the New is a found land. It is called the Gulf Stream from the Grand Bank. The Gulf Stream is deflected eastward under to the combined influence of the westerlies and the rotation of the earth. It is a crosses to the Atlantic Ocean is a northern Atlantic drift. There is a most important here. It is a cross. It is a Atlantic Ocean and northern Atlantic drift. There is a most important. Here show the most important current of the Atlantic Ocean. There is the most important is equatorial current and there is a Stratosphere and the Canaries and there all has a western winds draft. There is a show of the line. There is a currents as a dotted line is called and there is a line is a proper is a bomb area. The current Atlantic Oceans. There is the most important here show in this map. The North Atlantic Drive bifurcate into the two branches of which their eastern part of ocean. The northern branch is a continue as the North Atlantic Draft and the which the British allies from to where flow along to coastal to the Norway as the Norwegians and the current is enter to the Atlantic Ocean. The southern branch of flow between the Spain and Azores Island as a called Canaries Current, and this Canary current is finally join the northern equatorial current and completes. The circuit is a northern Atlantic Oceans. Within this circuit lies a Sagroso Sea, which is a fully of large quantity of sea beads, is called Sargassums as a brown algae. That is the most important here is a brown algae on the all their sea is a weeds. Apart from the clockwise is a circulation of the current in the northern Antarctic Ocean. There are also two called current. The first is the East Greenland current and the other is a Labrador current, which is a flow from the Arctic Ocean into the Atlantic Oceans. The Labrador is a current flow along the eastern coast of Canada and the meets there is a bomb Gulf Stream. And the locality it is a figure and show the conference of these two is currents. One is a cold and the other is a hot produce fog around to the new found land and the make it is the most important fishing ground of the world. East Greenland is a current flow between to the ice land and the Greenland and the cool there is a northern Atlantica and drift at the point of their confluence. We have seen earlier that South Equator current is split into two branches near a Cap de Shore Rock and Brazil. The northern is a branch joined to the North Equator current, and whereas the southern branches is a turn south and flow along their eastern coastal to the South America as a Brazil current. At about the 35 degrees south, latitude to the influence of the west lies and the rotation of the earth is a propel. There is a current eastward and the margle with their western wind is a draft. The near to the caps of a Good Hope there are South Antarctica current is diverted to the northernward as the call Bengulus and current is finally joined to the South Equatorial current, the completing to the circuit. Another called current is known as the flank land and current flow along to the south eastern coast of South America from south to the north. Our next topic is the most important here, a current of the Pacific Ocean. There is a part of the ocean submarine and the relief and the water circulation chapter. There are currents of the Pacific Ocean. It may be observed that is some bordered circular system is a clockwise in their northern hemisphere and anti-clockwise in the southern hemisphere. There is a most important point here. A clockwise is the northern hemisphere and anti-clockwise the southern hemisphere are the present in the Pacific Ocean also. And the show here map. Here show the map here Pacific Oceans. The North Pacific current here show and North Equator is here. And current is a call and bomb here show in this time to time of change this map. There is a most important map that show the here a Pacific current is a call and bomb. In the equilateral belt of the Pacific Oceans, two stream equilateral currents flow across the ocean from the Central America coastal. Between these two, the northern equatorial current and the southern equatorial currents flow a current. Equilateral current is a move west to the east. The north equatorial current is a turn northward and the flow along to the Philippines island and Turbans and Japan to form of the warm Kuroshio and Kuroshio current. From to southeast is the coastal of Japan. The current comes under to the influence of the west lies and flow right across the oceans and the North Pacific current. That is the most important. After the reaching there is the west coast of North America. It is a bifurcate and into the branches. The northern branch flow anti-clockwise. there is the most important here. There are best coast of their North America as we get into the two branches. There is the flow anti-clockwise along the coastal British Columbia and Alaska, and known as the Alaska Current. There is a British is a Columbia and Alaska, and there is known as the Alaska Current. The warm water of this current is help to be keep the Alaska coastal ice free in the winter. The other branch of the North Pacific here current are the moving to the southward along to the coastal of the California as the called California current. It is eventually they are joined to the northern equilateral current to be complete is a circuit. In the northern part of the Pacific Ocean, two cold currents also flow, and these are the Iowa current and the Ocotilus current. The cold Iowa current and flow along to coastal of the Kamchatka Peninsula. Another cold current is a Ocotilus current flow the past CYCLIC in the merges in the Iowa current near the is a Hokkaido Island. It is a later merge with the Kuroshima current and the sink beneath there is a warm water of the North Pacific current. And the next year, in the south of Pacific Ocean, there are south equatorial currents flow toward to the west and turn to southward as the East Australian current. It is there is a meet or near a Tasmania and the called South Pacific current, which is a flow from the west to the east. On the reaching the southwest coastal of South America, it is a turn northward as they are called Peru current. It then to meet the south equatorial current and the complete the circuit. The cold water of the Peru current is a partly is responsible for making the coastal of North Chile and the best Peru and the very scantily rainfall. The next topic is the currents of the Indian Ocean. There is the most important here, Indian Ocean. The pattern of circulation of the current is the Indian Ocean differ from the general pattern of the circulation in the Antarctica Oceans and the Pacific Ocean. And this is because Indian Ocean is blocked by the continental masses in the north. The general pattern of circulation in the southern section of the Indian Ocean is anti-clockwise as that of other oceans, but in the northern section there is a clear survival of the current is a winter and summer, and these are completely under the influence of the seasonal change of the monsoon winds. So there is a clear reversal of the current is the winters and summer season and southwestward during to northeast monsoon, and here a northeastward during to the southwest monsoon and variable during to transition season. Transition season is the most important for the currently of the Indian Ocean. During the winters is the Sri Lanka divided to the current of the Ariana Sea from to the those of the Bay of Bengal. The North Equatorial current flow the westward just south to the Sri Lanka with the disconnected to counter equatorial current flow between it and the South Equatorial current. At the time in the northern section, the wall of Bay of Bengal and Arabian Sea is under to the influence of the northeast monsoon. The northeast monsoon drive water of Bay of Bengal and the Arabian Sea the best water to circulate in the anti-clockwise direction, and this current is known as the northeast monsoon drift. Here show the map the current of the Indian Ocean winter. There is season of winter, but here a show of arrow dot arrow is a cold current show here, and the warm current show is a directly arrow, and there is a direction show the arrow. There is a most important map here show in this screen. In a summer, the northern sections come under the influence of southwest monsoon, and there is a easterly movement of water in the Bay of Bengal and the Arabian Sea, and produce a clockwise circulation. And this current is known as the southwest monsoon drift. In the general, their summer currents are more regular than those of winter. Here show the map the current of the Indian Ocean in a summer. There is a show of summer. There is the most important. There is a dotted line is a show the called current, and the line arrow here is a bomb current. There is the most important. That some difference on the winter and summer here. A map. There is a currently Indian Ocean. In the southern Indian Ocean, the south equatorial current is strengthened by there is a corresponding current of the Pacific Oceans. Flow from the east to the west, it turns southward along the coastal of the Mesosphere and Africa. A part of this is current which flow between to the mainland and the Megalosphere island is known as the Mesosphere current. After the confluence of these two, current is called to the Angola current. It then returns to easternward and the Mughal with their west wind drift. The west wind drift is a flow across the ocean to the west-east direction in the higher latitude to the reach their southern tip of the Australia. A branch of this stems is turned northern to flow along the western coast of Australia as a called West Australian current. West Australian current is later joined to the south equatorial current to be complete the circuit. There is a most important. Our most important topic here are effect of the ocean current. There is a most important topic arrive here. Effect of the ocean current. What is the effect here? The first effect here is the influence on climate. There is a most important here. Or influence on the climate. Ocean currents closely influence a distribution of the temperature, pressure, wind and precipitation, which is directly and indirectly influence of economic and society of people, especially those living in the coastal region. And some of the important effects of the ocean current are flowing. There is a most important. Currents move from the warm temperature area to the colder temperature area and vice versa as they are moved from one place to another, thereby or the attempt of modify the temperature. The temperature of the mass of water affect the temperature of the air above it. Therefore, the oceans current that move from equatorial region to the colder altitude arise their temperature of the air in the area into which it is moves. For example, warm North Antarctica is a draft which is the flow to northward to the west European coastal and help to the keep the coastal air. There is a Great Britain and Norway free of ice in a winter too. The effect of the oceans currents become more clear if you compare to the winter condition of the British Isles with that of the northeast coastal of Canada situated on the same altitude. Since the northeast is a coastal in Canada come under to the influence of called Labrador current. It is remain ice bound in during this and the winter time. When the cold and warm currents meet, they produce a mist and fog. There is a most important cold and warm current meet the produce a mist and fog. For example, near Newfoundland is a warm Gulf Stream meet a Labrador's current and produce a fog. And they also create a condition for the storm and the hurricanes in the Newfoundland to the typhoon in the Japan are the result of meeting of warm and cold current. There is the most important. And important here the next point influence on marine life. There is the most important effect here. The temperature has a great influence on the marine life. It determines its types of flora and fauna. The area where is a warm and cold current meet among there is a most important fishing ground of the world. The ocean's movement in their form of current help in the is a dispersal of marine life. Dispersal is a marine life. There is the most important. And the next here influence on trade. There is also important ocean current influence the trade. The portal there harbors of the high latitudes which are affected by the warm currents are ice free and open for trade all the year round. For example, the portals of the northwest Europe remain open throughout the year while the port of Quebec and the Canada get a frozen in the winter. important topic arrive here are importance of ocean for a human. There is a most important topic, important of the ocean for a human. We are a well hour to the oceans is cover about 71% of the earth's surface. There is a most important for the all class students and they form a major part of our environment and have a overwhelming to the influence of human and their activity. There is the most important and this sections is will be a study the importance of ocean in the different sphere of human life. There is the most important. The first here point arrive the ocean as a modifier of climate. There is the most important. The most important part played by the ocean is a modifier of the climate. There is the first one. The ocean store a large quantity of the heat and hence it is often called there is saving bank for the solar energy. Receiving deposit in a season of the exclusive insulations and is applying them back in the season of want. The extensive or deep water of oceans gain as well as a lose heat more slowly and then the land and when both are subjected to the same amount of the insulations. The contrast in the temperature of the ocean and the land explain the difference in the temperature of the coastal and interior region. The second, there is ocean supply to water vapor to the troposphere and thus are there a basic source of the all precipitation on the earth. They are also to the vital source of fresh water on the earth. There is a most important here. And the third here, the ocean current is an important regulator of temperature on the earth as a surface and they help in the exchange of a heat between the low and high altitude and certainly there is sustain to the global energy balance. On the local scale, the warm ocean current is bearing to the moderating influence to the coastals in a higher altitude. Cool current reduce the heat of the tropically desert along to narrow coastal belt. There is a most important. And fourth here, the influence of the ocean climate become a more clear if we consider the distribution of the pressure and prevailing winds system over the sea surface. The ocean surface has 6 or more permanent centers of high pressure and this high pressure area give a birth to be a planetary wind system over to the earth and this planetary wind is determine the amount of rainfall and its distribution over to the earth's surface and the western lights give to the rainfall on the West Europeans and the coastal after collecting moisture from to the warm North Antarctica drift. The next here the ocean and resource. There is a most important here ocean and resource. The ocean have a way is been to the great source of food and other product of the value of man. And the animal and plant of the sea continually as a best resource from which a man can derive a food, fertilizer for agriculture and the raw materials for industries. Fish and other marine animals from a rich source of food and nutrition for a man. And with the progress of a human society and the increase of population, man has a dependent on the sea for other product as increasing. The fishes now make up to more than 10% of the total animal protein that a human consume. There is a most important here. Most important topic arrive here the ocean mineral resource. Why the ocean mineral resource? Here the ocean are the storehouse of large number of useful metallic and non-metallic mineral. The foremost among their minerals are a petroleum deposit of the continental slab in the energy and Hungary's world. They are the most sought after resource. The best deposit of the petroleum has been to the found in many places such as the North Sea. Off there is the coastal of South California and Texas. There is a Mediterranean as the sea is the Persian Gulf. Mumbai High is the Arabian Sea. There is the most important. There is also important here the common salt or sodium chloride is extracted from seawater. Apart from the salt, magnesium and bromines have long been extracted from the seawater. The minerals and wealth of the sea also include a metal. All the metallic elements are present in the seawater in some degree. However, the water and meditant of the oceans the heaviest saturated with such a metal and zinc, copper, leads, silver, and the gold, especially in their volcanic region of the oceans radius. There is a technology exported to these minerals as a not yet developed. The most significant are minerals is nodules found on the deep sea floor. There is important ones of the phosphorites and manganese is nodules. The next here, the oceans and energy. There is the most important ocean and energy. The energy resource of the oceans are various types. There is a tidal power and the geothermal energy and energy for a ocean temperature. There is the most important here. Oceans is an energy source of energy. Tidal powers, geothermal energy and energy from ocean temperature. The tide energy was in use even in the 12th century. The water wheels drive by there the tides were used for the grinding grain. And today fought of began made for the harness and the energy for a run electric generator. And there is a difficulties in this use of tide power because of the irregularities of the tides. However, a few tides power station is working in the Russia, France, and China. The next here, the ocean is the transportation and trade. That is the most important here. Ocean were originally consideration of barrier, but today they act as a natural link among the continent and the national of the world. They provide to natural highways at the low cost for international trade, and they facilitate the movement of their bulk goods. The water is a by not, and there is a need for the motives. Their power oceans is the great booms to be international trade.